First and foremost, thank you for coming here today on such short notice. But like many of you, I was just recently made aware of the city's proposal in regards to the ongoing city-county jail contracts. I have prepared a brief statement and will welcome any questions that I can answer at the end of it. Unfortunately, again, I was just made aware of this proposal. I met briefly with County Commissioner Ron Peters and several members of my staff, and like many of you, I have more questions than I do answers at this juncture. First and foremost, I do want to make it clear I had no part in the negotiations with the city for the jail contracts. The county commissioners are statutorily obligated, as you know, to negotiate on behalf of the county on any contracts, including those with David L. Moss. My understanding is that the county was negotiating with the city for approximately $1.4 million. Furthermore, the county commissioners recently passed a resolution that would allow for the billing of the city for a per diem rate of $69, which would be inclusive of mixed charges. That roughly equals approximately $1.4 million. It should be noted, however, that in 1992, the city paid the county $1.6 million. Taking into account simple inflation rates, that would roughly equal $2.7 million in 2017. However, of more concern to me is the potential impact that this will have on the citizens of Tulsa. It appears that with the city intending on opening their own jail facility, we will have a duplication of law enforcement services. I believe that this is certainly not a fiscally responsible by either the city or the county. Furthermore, in this proposal, it indicates that the city will utilize court holding. For the past several decades, we have provided the city space at the jail for their records and warrant office in exchange for our use of the court holding area. I certainly hope that this property swap will continue. The city proposal does not indicate whether or not they will continue to let the county utilize this area. As a result, I have to be prepared in the event that they no longer allow us to utilize that. I should add that should that happen, there will be a tremendous effect on the efficiency of the criminal justice system. Furthermore, we will also encounter some security issues because we will be forced to transport to and from the court, from the jail, inmates probably double what we do now. And we transport approximately 200 inmates per day. From a public safety standpoint, transporting inmates is always a security risk. Based on this proposal, it appears that Okmulgee will be transporting inmates twice a day on an approximately 40-mile to and from trip from Okmulgee to the city of Tulsa, down Highway 75. Worst case scenario, if we have one wreck with a van full of inmates, city inmates at that, you can see the repercussions of a worst case scenario like that. I think that, again, not having been involved in the negotiations, I find it extremely concerning, as I'm sure that the majority of Tulsa does, that we have not been able to come to a resolution that is beneficial to the city or the county, and most importantly, to the citizens that we serve. Again, not having been involved in that, I don't know what the hang-ups are. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the commissioners or on behalf of the city, but again, I think it is our responsibility to find a way to put this problem that has existed for years to bed. In doing so, I believe, and I say that in front of many of my coworkers, my commissioners, and other elected officials, that we have to remember that we serve the citizens of the city and county of Tulsa, and that should be our priority. In closing, if this proposal is indicative of the path in which the city intends to move forward, I wish them well in their endeavor. Our office holds no animosity, and we will continue to cooperate with the city as needed to make this a smooth transition, and most importantly, to continue protecting the citizens of this great city and county of Tulsa. Thank you. I will take any questions at this point in time that I can answer, but again, please keep in mind that from a number standpoint, not having been involved in those negotiations, you're probably going to get a I don't know.
How would the loss of revenue from city inmates affect the sheriff's operations?
Well, it certainly will have an impact, but right now, what they currently pay, we can survive that fiscal impact. It's certainly not going to sink our ship, but I think that in this grand scheme of things, surviving that revenue loss is at the bottom of the list when you talk about public safety and the efficiency of our criminal justice system. We have the courts that many of these inmates will go to right here in downtown, where our jail is located. Now they're going to move it 40 miles down Highway 75 to Okmulgee. That alone brings into question efficiency, and I think it doesn't allow for that.
About how many municipal-only charged inmates do you have on a given day?
Municipal only,
Which is what we're talking about, right?
well, we're talking about municipal charges as well as mixed charges. So there's been an issue in regards to what is considered a municipal inmate. And that's something that I can certainly talk about briefly, but it would take much more time than you have or I have right now to go into details. But this is simply talking about the holding of an inmate. We're not talking about the programs or the process in which we book inmates into the jail, the medical liability, the mental health that we provide at David L. Moss. All those things are going to affect city inmates, because that's what we're talking about right now, city inmates. And my concern is that those programs may or may not be available in Okmulgee, and I don't know a single thing about their jail. Okay? They may have those programs, wonderful. But we have those programs here at David L. Moss for a reason, and that is to serve that portion of the population that is incarcerated there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you know about how many or ballpark?
Dave, do you know about how ballpark figure?
Yes, sir. What would be exact?
They change on a rapid basis. And today at 1,300 hours, we had 15 city inmates on city-only charges, 59 with city and state charges, and then at 334, we had 8 on city charges, 41 on state and city, and 2 on city and federal, so that's how much it changes.
Okay.
Within the hours.
What's your max capacity, isn't 15 1%? Or
I'm sorry?
isn't max capacity like 1,500, so that'd be about 1%?
No, max capacity is around 2,000.
Excuse me.
Okay, so they roughly make up about 10% of, approximately 10% of the jail population,
I thought municipal only.
Municipal.
1%.
municipal inmates. If you're talking municipal only,
Yeah, yeah.
municipal only, yeah, it's 1 or 2%, I believe.
Okay.
Outside of the cost, city leaders have also said to me that one of the issues is transparency and how their money is being spent and where it's going. Is that something that you could say from your office or the county would be giving to the city more if they could work out a deal to keep the inmates here?
What I can tell you that upon taking office, I have made it very clear that we are completely transparent. There has been audits that were conducted of that jail prior to my taking office here that were not only brought about by the county, but by the city. Oddly enough, both those audits, MGT as well as BKD, I believe it was, came out to about even in terms of what the city should be paying in terms of total costs to hold a city inmate, okay? For whatever reason, those were kind of cast aside. I believe probably because those numbers were in about $4 to $5 million range, okay? What I will offer up here publicly is that the city can come in, again, check our books, see where their money is going, ask for anything, and we will provide it. That's the transparency that, having taken office here, and I can only speak about the time that I've been with Tulsa County, is that we are completely transparent with that. Nobody from the city has asked me specifically for anything in regards to where their money is going. But I welcome those questions, and they can come to the jail tomorrow or tonight if they'd like. and we will show them the books and where their money is being spent.
Have you had any other agencies that you hold inmates for trying to pull their inmates out for any reason, or is it just the city?
The city right now, we've had the U.S. Marshals that have moved a significant portion of their inmates out to Okmulgee. And I can only hypothesize as to why that's occurring, and that's potentially because my understanding is there's a $48 per diem that is being offered. If Okmulgee can handle that, those inmates and the operations that go with holding an inmate at $48, well, my hat's off to them.
When did the U.S. Marshals start that?
I don't know the exact date.
And prior to the $69?
And I should specify, there's a federal holding facility, and then, of course, there's Okmulgee's facility. The federal facility is for ICE and the United States Marshal Service.
Prior to the $69 recommendation, what was about the cost before that?
Well, that's difficult to answer, and so bear with me for a second, because we're talking over what period of time. Recently, prior to this, because for 10 years, it was around $27, and more recently, I think it went up to about 54. Now, those are approximate numbers because I don't remember what the exact numbers are. And I think it also be noted along those lines that the $69 per diem is also what ICE and the U.S. Marshals currently pay. So this is not charging the city more than what we are already charging other entities that contract with David Omos.
Do you feel slighted by this in any way?
No, I don't. I mean, where I feel, and I don't know that slighted is going to be the accurate word, I think where I have grave concerns is how this is going to affect the public. I was elected to serve the public. That's who I answer to. And my concerns are there. Again, I wish the city well in their endeavors. If that's what they choose to do from a business standpoint, I have no business telling what the city they need to do. I feel that we're the better option in the long run. I think they will see that in the long run. But again, I wish them well in their endeavor. My concerns are how is it going to impact the citizens of Tulsa from a financial standpoint, from a public safety standpoint, and from an efficiency standpoint. Those are things that I have concerns about. I get reimbursed to run that jail regardless of whether the city comes in or not. If I hold an inmate, I'm going to be reimbursed for that. That's how we run the jail. This is not free, and it's an underfunded as it is, and we continue to add additional services as the public demands, things like mental health, diversion programs. All those things are coming into play and potentially can be affected. I hope that however this plays out, that we can continue in cooperation, as I stated earlier, with specifically Tulsa PD in regards to the protection of our citizens and providing first-class law enforcement services. I truly believe that having a city jail and the county jail is fiscally irresponsible, inefficient, and those two things alone, I leave that up to the public to make up their own minds. I serve at their will, and I truly believe that if we cannot come to a resolution to the jail city contracts, then that is on the fault of the city and the county. We need to find a way that to put this thing to bed that is beneficial to not just the city, not just the county, but both, but more importantly, to the citizens of Tulsa County.
Do you think the county commissioners pushed this too far in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
I don't. When you take into account, so let's take the resolution that was passed in the BOCC meeting. It was for $69. Again, that's the rate that we're charging the federal government. I don't know that we could, in good faith, go, well, city, you're at a cheaper rate, but we're going to charge the feds this rate. And I think that when you get to the nuts and bolts of what it takes to hold an inmate, whether it's city, county, state, federal, whomever, that entails more than just simply putting somebody in a pod and calling it a day. We have city inmates that are utilizing our mental health programs right now. We have city inmates that have utilized our medical. We have federal inmates, state inmates that have utilized those programs as well. And again, let's take this a step further and talk about the diversion that both city and county are currently working towards in keeping nonviolent offenders out of the jail, finding ways for them to pay their fines, and keeping them out of jail. Where does that going to end up at? I mean, again, I got to go back to this proposal. I just found out about it. I have more questions than answers, but again, as the elected sheriff of Tulsa County, I have to ask those questions and be prepared to have an answer. And there's no doubt, let me be clear, although from a financial aspect, we can absorb the loss of the city's revenue, but that's very simple. The trickle-down effect on other parts are going to be affected, as I outlined earlier. And that's what has me concerned.
Earlier when you were talking about the court holding, the reason that could be a problem is that's in the city property, it's under jail.
Technically, yes, that is the city's, but again, you know, for decades now, we have allowed them to utilize space in the jail for their warrants and their records. And there's other contracts that I haven't talked about, and I hope, again, that those will remain stable. We currently pay to utilize the 911 center. I don't know where these things are going to end up. I wish I could tell you, but again, having just received this proposal, I don't know, 2.5 hours ago, I got to prepare for the fact that the city is going to go, you know what, you're no longer in the 911 center. Now I have some serious public safety issues. Or you're no longer in court holding. Now I've got to prepare for that. Fortunately, we have. I don't like to leave things to question. I knew the scope of this issue, again, prior to coming in, and more so as the elected sheriff of Tulsa County. And so we've already begun preparations in the event that this happened. I was hoping that it wouldn't, but again, I can only go by this proposal that was sent out and take it at face value that these things are going to happen. And I think that's unfortunate.
Now, you said that you just got this proposal, but you also said that you kind of been, if I understood correctly, that you kind of been making some contingency plans. So
Yes.
have there been some discussion that something like this was going to happen?
No, there hasn't. There has not been anything that has reached the level of saying, you know what, we're separating. This, from my standpoint, caught me off guard. That being said, yes, we have been preparing for it. I'm obligated as the head of this agency and the sheriff of Tulsa County to prepare for the worst. And upon coming in, knowing that this has been a contentious issue between the city and the county for quite a few years, I've got to look at what the pitfalls are, what the doomsday is going to be. And in sitting down with financial advisors, employees of the sheriff's office that have been here and are very familiar with this issue, we sat down very early on and said, what is worst case scenario if this day happens? And although there's still apparently a shred of hope that cooler heads will prevail, again, I've got to only go by what I know, and it's the proposal that is presented me today, oddly enough, by the media, and not the city of Tulsa, and take it on its face value and prepare for the fact that they are going to separate. And again, no animosity on my behalf. Unfortunately, business is business, but I think we need to step out of that business arena, and both county and city have to ask each other, how does this benefit our citizens? That's the point I want to drive home. And I'm with the county. My loyalties are to the county. I was with the city for 2 decades plus. That does not, from my opinion, does not come into to my thought process. Only the citizens do. And again, I find it reprehensible that we cannot come to a conclusion and put this thing to rest. And I'm not going to cast blame at this point in time, but I will say this, that any accusations of not being transparent or above board in the handling of the city's money is false. And if they want to send somebody over, bring them. Bring them.
Will you reach out to the mayor personally?
You know, I have the utmost respect for Mayor Bynum. I do know him. I've had conversations in the past. They've always been good ones, including about the jail. But that's, again, I'm not involved in the negotiations, and I don't know that, and I certainly don't want to overstep my bounds and say, hey, let's work this out. I have the utmost respect for our commissioners. I do believe that they do have the county as well as its citizens in mind going into these negotiations. And just for the record, if 1.4 million truly was the number that was trying to be negotiated, that is not out of bounds. I'll be honest, from my personal standpoint and as the sheriff, I think it should be higher. But if we can reach an agreement at 1.4 million, put this to rest with some sort of long-term contract that will not sink us or them, then I'm all for that. And that's about all as I can say in terms of what I think of the negotiations. Anybody else? Thank you for your time.